Hey guys, 8 honors class. This is 12-2, completing the square. This is important and kind of confusing at first for some people. Aspect of quadratics. It's very important though. More important than you think at the beginning. If you think, why are we doing this? This is one of those things that is important to fight through because it'll open up a lot of other doors for this stuff. So if we have something like this is a perfect square trinomial. If we factored it out, we get this. This one, same thing. If we factored that out, we get this. If we factored x minus 4 times x minus 4 out, we get this. So the idea behind a perfect square trinomial is figuring out what you need here in order to make this a perfect square trinomial to where we can factor it x plus 3, which is x plus 3 squared. So we didn't talk a lot of perfect square trinomial and factoring. But we're going to use some of it here. So get used to the concept of what a perfect square trinomial is. It's the same thing with the same sign in there, squared. The way we figure out what number we need to complete the square is once we have x squared with no coefficient there, which we have on all these already, we don't have to do any work there. These are the entry level ones. All we need to do is take b divided by 2 and then square it. That's always going to work when we want to complete the square. If we have no coefficient for x and we take b and divide it by 2 and square it, that's always going to be what we're put there if we don't have anything there. And the way we solve these is to get rid of that thing anyway. So let's look at solving some of these. And again, any questions you guys have, we can look at in class. This is just meant to be an introduction, not the lesson in and of itself. So if we're solving something like, well, let's look at this one. So negative 8 divided by 2, this negative 4, we square that, we get 16. So we put a 16 there, or she just leaves it as negative 4 quantity squared, because that's what's going to go down here when we rewrite this thing as x minus 4 quantity squared. So it's going to be 16, and that's important because you're going to have to add 16 to the other side of the equation, as we'll do soon. But it's negative 4 squared, which is why there's a negative 4 in here. So if we solve something the old way, we just factor this and we get negative 1 and positive 3. If we CAT certified this, those would be our answers. Another way to do this is by completing the square. So what we do if we had this exact same thing, we'd have to get rid of this negative. We'd have to get rid of this negative 3 and create space for the thing that we're going to put in here by dividing b by 2 and squaring it. So we subtract 3 on both, or sorry, add 3 on both sides. So that's why there's a 3 there. Now that we have 3 gone, and we make sure that there's no coefficient here next to x squared, we take this guy, divide it by 2, so I get negative 1, and square it. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. So I add positive 1 on to that side, because I'm also going to add it onto this side. This number here is positive 1, but she puts it as negative 1 quantity squared because when you get the perfect square trinomial, it's going to be x minus 1 quantity squared. So all of a sudden, by doing what we just did, this little finagling, we can turn this side now into perfect x minus 1 quantity squared. This side is going to be 4 because we started with 3 here and then we added 1 because we magically added this 1 onto this side to make our job easier. So we have to add 1 onto this side too to keep things equal. So now I have x minus 1 quantity squared equals 4. If I square root both sides, I end up with x minus 1 equals positive or negative 2. Again, because we square rooted an x, so we have to put a positive or negative on the other side. Now we add 1 on both sides. So we have x by itself here, and now we have 1 that we just added on positive or negative 2. So 1 plus or minus 2. We get the same exact answers as we did when we do it this way. So this is another way and a very important way to solve quadratic equations. I highly recommend you look at these and spend some time on them, and don't think they're just kind of like a second method, oh, you already know ways to do it. You'll learn a lot of interesting things if you learn to complete the square. For this one, let's look. X squared minus 12x plus 4. I got to get this 4 to the other side to leave space here, so I subtract 4. I have no coefficient for x, so I'm okay. I don't need to get rid of it. So all I look at is b. It's negative 12. I divide it by 2. I get negative 6. I square that, I get 36. So I'm going to have a 36 here and a 36 here. Then I'm going to add to both sides. Here I'm just going to leave it as negative 6 quantity squared, which is 36. But I leave it like that just because I know that this is the number I'm going to have to put here. Here I add a full 36 to end up with 32 here. So I have x minus 6 quantity squared equals 32. If I square root both sides, I get x minus 6 now equals positive or negative square root of 32. I add 6 on both sides. My final answer will be 6 plus or minus square root of 32. Oh, we can break the square root of 32 down. She didn't do it here, but if we want to break the square root of 32 down, it's 4 times 4 times 2 is the square root of 32. So if I have two 4s, I can pull one out. So the square root of 32 is 4 roots of 2. So my best final answer for this would be 6 plus or minus 4 root 2. That would be the best final answer for number 2 here. Let's look at a harder one. This is when you have a coefficient here. We want to get rid of that coefficient, so we can do it in either order. We can subtract this first and then divide everything by 3, but we're just going to divide everything by 3 first to get rid of it here. So I end up with a 7 over 3x and a positive 2/3. I cannot complete the square if there's a number there. So now I subtract 2/3 on both sides. I get a negative 2/3 there. This cancels out. I need now to find what half of 7/3 is. So that's the same as 7/3 times 1/2. That's 7/6. And then I square that to get 49 over 36. That's what I add to this side. Here I'm going to add it here as well, but I write it like 7 over 6 quantity squared, which is the same thing as positive 49 over 36. I just wrote it in a different fashion because I know it's going to have to go right here. So positive 7 over 6 goes right there. I then square root it, and then I square root this side. Again, I have to put a positive negative because I square rooted a variable. Square root of negative 25 square root of 25 over 36 is 5 over 6. Positive or negative 5 over 6 equals x plus 7/6. Subtract 7/6 on both sides. So I get negative 7/6 plus or minus 5/6, which is the same as the two answers. Negative 7 plus 5 over 6, which is negative 2 over 6. Or negative 7 minus 5 over 6, which is negative 12 over 6. When these reduce, you get negative 1/3. Oops, sorry guys. When those reduce, you get negative 1/3 and 2. These are our final answers.